What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of our Pirates rebuild here in OOTP 26. Thank you for continuing to check in on this series. I hope you're enjoying it so far as we kind of find our own footing and figure out what we're doing. Or if this is maybe the first episode you've seen, hopefully you can go back and check out the others and kind of catch up. But we're at our first off season here. It is October 29th, 2025. And as you can see here, we had a bit of a World Series revenge narrative in our sim where the Yankees take out the Dodgers in just 5 games after going through the Blue Jays and the Tigers. So the World Series goes back to the AL this year. We'll see who, I actually didn't even check to see who won Series MVP, but it looks like Cody Bellinger takes it home. So congrats to the Yankees. But now let's pivot back to our Pirates here. So we're at the first day of the offseason. Nothing has really gotten moving yet. We did receive quite a bit of mail. The first notable piece of information is a budget increase. Previously, we were working with around $150 million payroll, and we've seen a $24 million increase year over year, which is pretty sizable. But in this note, it's estimating that we should have a payroll of around $75 million. So when I think back to the thought of potentially offering Paul Skeens a long-term deal, and I think of his contract AAV, like demand, was around $50 million, and in the context of our suggested payroll here, 2/3 of that going to one player, I just don't think it's possible to bring him back, you guys. But it is nice to have a little bit more money to play around with, and maybe we can make some smart moves here this offseason to field a more competitive team. And at the very least, this will allow us to boost up our development and scouting budgets for the next year. So that's a nice update. We did get a couple new goals here. They're largely the same. There's not much difference here. He wants us to bring more players we drafted onto the team, and then now we're aiming to play closer to 500 baseball. So we'll see how we do there. The other bit of news is that we have a top 10 prospect now, and Connor Griffin. He is number 6 in the rankings. It is a little brutal to see Justin Lampkin here as the top pitching prospect in all of baseball when we were looking at him with our second-round pick in this last draft. We ended up going the position player route, and OSA just views him so much higher than we do with 80 grade potential. So that's a little bit of a bummer that we missed out on him. But in terms of top systems, our Pirates are a top 10 system at number 10. We have Griffin at 6. Chandler sort of maintained his ranking. He was in the 20s and he sort of remained there. And then we have Tamar Johnson and Thomas Harrington in the back, closer to the end of the top 100. So overall, pretty solid. We have a couple more college draftees here cracking the top 10. And I think that was it as far as updates here. Obviously, we have the arbitration period beginning and the development lab opening. I've done a little bit of, preemptive work to make sure we can move through this pretty quickly. But I'll show you sort of what we're thinking with arbitration first, and then we'll move to the development lab after. And then I just remembered one thing that maybe we should touch on right before we wrap up. But Johan Oviedo is one of the guys we're going to be trying to bring back here. The pound sign here means we've offered them a contract. We're just basing that off of the arbitration demand, right? We're lowballing it slightly. Maybe 90% of this arbitration estimate is what we've offered them, and they're actively considering. No big multi-year deals, even for O'Neal Cruz. Like I mentioned, I'm still just a little, like, I want to see him prove it out a little bit more before we commit to him for, 5 or 6 years. So everyone's just getting 1-year renewals, but there's, as you can see, there are quite a few that we are choosing not to renew. And a lot of these aren't really that surprising, right? Cabrera, we've talked about. Falter, we've talked about. I did shop him one more time. There's still no market, so we're just going to non-tender. Justin Lawrence and Dauri Moreta, they're, borderline capable, but they're also out of option years, so I don't really love carrying them on the 40 if I can't move them up and down. So they're going to be no's. Tanner Rainey, I didn't even realize was getting paid over $1 million, so he won't be back either. And same for these guys. Now, these two here are a little more, sensitive, or, maybe that's not the right word, but surprising, right? So, we have Henry Davis that we want to commit regular playing time to, and we also have Endy Rodriguez as well. And so I really just don't think there's much room for Joey Bart anymore, which is unfortunate because he's such a great clubhouse personality. But I think we're going to look to move on. I may shop him off camera as we move through these first couple of days to see what market, if any, there is for him. But we're going to look to move on. And then also I've decided to non-tender Jack Sawinski, which may be a little surprising, but he's hitting his first arbitration years, and if you look at his ratings, you think this is pretty good, but I'm zooming out and realizing that he's had 2 consecutive seasons of negative WAR, like the real life 2024 and then the half real life, half sim 2025. He's repeated slightly negative WAR seasons here, and I really just don't like that he's hitting 200 and striking out at an insane rate. I think we have players like this, and we don't need more of them necessarily. And he can't really back up center field, and he's had back-to-back years of negative WAR. I kind of just want to cut bait before continuing to run him out there. Like, we have other guys that we can bring up and see what we have. Like, I'm thinking either Nick York, or better case scenario would be Termar Johnson is ready and we run him out in left field as a lefty. So I don't think we necessarily need to bring back Sawinski. I'll probably shop him as well, similar to kind of what we'll look for with Bart. But this next group of guys here, we have a bunch of veterans, right? And we do have Caleb Ferguson, who I did have contract negotiations with him, and it turned out that his expectations were a bit lower than what we saw previously. I think the last time we checked in with him, he was wanting around $6 million a year, and we were able to talk him down to a $3.5 million salary. So we offered him a 2-year, $3.5 million deal, which is just slightly more than what he was making last season. But, I think his stamina actually dropped, which is a little concerning, but the velo is maintained. Obviously, he's good at keeping the ball in the park. And at worst, he profiles as a lefty specialist. But I thought it's worth bringing him back at that price. We'll have some financial flexibility, so we can spend a little bit. It's not going to kill us to bring in a $3.5 million back-end reliever. These other guys are a little more expendable. Obviously, Heaney and Pham, we have no interest in bringing either of them back, but the weird thing is with McCutchen, I would bring him back. It's insane that he wants a 3-year deal for $40 million. And, Yeah, he wants an MVP bonus as well. So, like, I'm a little just torn here on what to do because obviously he's, you know, solid versus lefties, solid versus righty. Had a great season for us last year. He's very popular. I guess he's not extremely popular. Very is one level lower than extreme, I believe. So it's definitely going to hurt if he does leave in terms of our fan interest, but we may just have to deal with that. I don't think that I want to bring him back, but I'm open to ideas if you feel passionately that we should bring back Andrew McCutchen. I guess let me know because we have some time before, free agency files. A lot of just minor league renewals here too that we went through. So this will kind of clear itself out. There are a couple guys here we're choosing not to renew because they're up for major league deals, and I just don't have room on the 40 for them. So this is sort of the first look at the arbitration, thought process. If we jump to player development, you can see there's not much movement outside of this. It's a little concerning that Quentin Young did not crack the top 200 despite being picked in the top 10. So that's a little frightening, I guess. But we've already set up most of our dev lab picks here. So before I dive into what we're doing, I stumbled upon a big red flag here. So I was going to assign Quentin Young a slot here, and I was shocked to see that he has somehow suffered an undisclosed injury 2 weeks ago, and we just have no idea what it might be. So this is really disappointing. He can still be successful in rookie ball next year with these ratings, but I was hoping to improve something like contact or two-strike approach or maybe his eye. So we're kind of just stuck. I'm not going to go into commissioner mode and edit the injury off of him or anything. We're kind of just going to deal with it. But we adapt, and we've found enough tasks here to fill out the dev lab. So at the top, we want Bubba Chandler to develop into a frontline starter for us. So we're going to have him work on his control. With a power pitcher, it's not totally necessary to have elite control, but if you do, combined with the big stuff, then you have a real superstar. So that's sort of the thought process here, is that if we can at least get that to 50, the stuff will carry. And when I was looking at his underlying stats, the one thing that I wanted to bring down, obviously here, is the walk rate. So that's pretty good. You could do movement too, but he didn't give up any homers in 4 games, which, knock on wood, hopefully that continues for us. So we went control with Bubba. Next up, Nick Gonzalez, our budding superstar. We'll just say star for now. We're going to look to increase his plate discipline to just boost that up. If we're going to continue to hit him lead off, hopefully he can walk a little bit more, or at least, that's the hope. There is some untapped potential there, and it's a medium difficulty program, so hopefully we see good results. O'Neal Cruz, we're going to do quality of contact. I think you could argue two-strike approach is more valuable considering it's only a 40 grade, but there's only 5 points of upside here, where I'm really hoping to tap into this extra BABIP potential that we see in him with the quality of contact program. So both of them are difficult programs, so it's not like one would be easier to accomplish compared to the other. But I think if we successfully pull off the contact program, that should lift, all of this. So that's the one we're going for. Then we have our top 10 prospect, Connor Griffin here. Obviously, he's going to be good at almost everything. If you're looking at like the ceiling, again, the strikeout is maybe where you would think to go. But I'm kind of happy with where it was. As long as this number is like under 30, I'm not panicking. So I think I'm fine not touching it. What we're going to train on him is his gap power. With this speed, he should be hitting a lot more doubles than he did in A-ball last year. So in 87 games, he had 12 doubles. I think that should be a lot higher. That should be like 20, 25, 30. So we're going to look to train that up. There's still a big window of growth here, a 20-point gap for him to get better. And it's a medium difficulty program, so hopefully we see good results there. Then we have Termar Johnson here, who had a good year at AA. We're going to look to play him in the outfield, I think. I mentioned at the end of last video that I discovered he has outfield range, so he could possibly play left field for us. And if we're moving on from Sawinski, he could factor early to mid next year there. But if we're going to play him in the corner, we really want a little bit more power. So we're going to do generate bat speed for him. We think there's a 10-point gap here at least. At one point we thought there was, I thought I remembered seeing the potential here for the power at 55 at one point. So there may even be a 15-point gap here that might just be kind of hidden. But point being, if we can tap into bat speed and get a little bit more pop out of Termar, he could actually play for us pretty well in a corner. Dean Curley here, our second-round pick. We're going to do two-strike approach with him because 30 is just too low, right? We're looking at like where he was in A-ball last year, where he produced decently, but again, I see this over 30, and that's a little bit of a red flag for me. I like the amount of doubles per game and the homers per game. Like the slugging is okay. I think he'll be fine over a larger sample, but let's try to improve this two-strike approach while we can, and it's still pretty early with him. Then we have Nate Snead here. He's one of the last guys. He came up to A-ball and was immediately really awesome for us last year. So we could have gone a number of ways here. We could have gone maybe even stamina. We could have gone secondary pitch improvement. But, I think control is what we're just going to keep doubling down on with him, because we really don't want this potential to fall down to 40 or 45. We want to keep this at 50 and try to max this out as quick as we can so that, he stays effective. It's always kind of challenging with the power pitchers to do that, but hoping for good success here. Again, I didn't really feel like movement was super necessary, just because, he didn't really struggle giving up homers last year. It was mainly walks that were slightly elevated. I mean, 4.5 isn't egregious, but hopefully we can tap into some more control here. The last couple guys, at this point, I feel like we've hit on most of our talented prospects. So I decided to double back to the majors here. And if we're going to invest, the next few years in Henry Davis, we may as well try to improve his contact, right? So if we can get both of these up to 50, I think he could be in a really good place. He's already a decent catcher, but he's just not quite batting at the level that, I would hope with these ratings. So hopefully we're pushing him kind of hard with a difficult program, but hopefully it pays off for us and Henry Davis becomes a little bit of a masher for us. And then you might think I'm a little crazy for this one, but I wanted to reward Braxton Ashcraft, or, build on his really strong season of 2.5 WAR. And I was like struggling on like what program to give him, because we sort of view him as almost like a finished product, right? I considered a program to make him like throw harder, but I think his velocity is fine. The only thing that we really see in him is secondary pitch improvement, like with this curveball. So that's what we chose. I guess we're hoping for an outstanding result there. really, I just want anything that can maybe move up his stuff slightly. Like, he still had a decent strikeout to walk ratio, but I just felt like we should commit something to him given he's coming off such a strong season and he's still under so much team control. So let me know what you think there. I guess you could also argue that we could go for like a stamina program with him, but like a lot of his good games, he's making it pretty deep just because he's not walking guys. Like, his control is making him really efficient, and he's going deep in games without the 50 plus stamina. So let me know what you think about that one. And then this last guy, this is a player that we haven't discussed at all that I recently became aware of in our system. This is Wyatt Sanford, who is a high school draftee in the second round of last year's draft, so 2024. He caught my eye when I was looking through our roster, and he has an outstanding personality here. So good work ethic, IQ. Great defender up the middle, lefty bat, infield, only 19. I mean, he's about to turn 20, but still just a teenager. And look at all this potential. Also the production too, right? Across two levels last year, 150, 142. Great seasons. Great on the base paths. So why not commit some resources to this guy? We're going to give him a challenging program because we believe that this personality can make it work. So we're going to push him to increase this power, even if there's not, plus upside there. It's never going to be a 60 or a 70 grade tool for him. If we can get a little bit more out of this, I think that's just going to make him, more and more effective at the higher levels. It's kind of crazy he was putting up this stat line with these ratings, right? Like at A ball as is. If he can get a little bit more pop in the bat, this could be someone that we look to feature down the line. Who knows? But that's what we have. Again, I'm disappointed we couldn't get Quentin Young in there. And then I was also considering some of these other pitchers, right? Like Thomas Harrington. You could argue secondary pitch improvement would benefit him with all of these categories here, but I'm just so turned off by his 2025 stats that I kind of just want to see him figure it out himself. And plus, he's a little old. He's over 24 now. And then we also have like our college outfielders that we took, like Gavin Turley and the newly acquired Wilfredo Antunez. I don't know that we're banking on them being major contributors next year, so I don't think it makes sense to train them in the lab. I think you need to fall into like one of two categories in order to make a development lab slot. You need to either be like, someone we're counting on to produce at the major league level next year, like a lot of these guys here, or someone who just is at the top of our potential in our farm system. So, we have our best position players here and we have our best pitcher here. So I'm happy with what we have here. We'll see what ends up happening. And, I think it's new in this game at the halfway point they give you the option to cancel. So if someone is really struggling, we may end up turning one of those off and subbing in another 3 to 4 month program in its place. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. The other thing I did want to mention, I'm not going to do this on camera. I'm going to do this in my own time. But now that we're in the off season, I think we can make a bunch of personnel changes, right? So Don Kelly held it down for the half of the season, and he's honestly not so bad. He has good relationships, I think, with most of our players, or at least average, right? But I don't think he's the guy we want long term. So even though he's still under contract, we may clean house a bit here. I know our pitching coach is also just not it, right? These are all really bad. So we're going to move on from him too, and probably our hitting coach as well. So I'm going to do a bunch of cleaning up here, and that's going to extend to the minor leagues as well. So next time we check in, this will probably look a lot different. And I may not even update you all until the very end of the offseason when we have this fully figured out. But we also need to move on from our trainer, right? I never really even looked at him in the first few episodes. So he's not really good at preventing much of anything. He's okay at some rehabs, but not at others. He's good at getting guys back from fatigue. So he's got to go. We just need better preventative injury management. So all that to say, we're going to make a lot of changes here. Stay tuned, I guess, or I'll loop back around once all of that's done towards the end of the off season, and we can kind of review. But the next time I check in, we'll probably keep moving through the calendar here toward the awards. I'll continue shopping those arbitration guys that we're going to non-tender, and then we'll check back in at the start of free agency to kind of see who's on the market and what kind of moves we can make. But I'll check back with you in a few minutes. If anything major happens, I'll make sure to check back in. Okay, guys, we're back here. I wanted to pop in now that it's been a couple of days of game time. We've moved through all of the awards, and we actually showed pretty well in a couple of categories, so we'll go through those, and then I'll update you on the status of all of our arbitration players. The first thing I think that's noteworthy of touching on is the Gold Glovers. Maybe we'll run through all of these quickly, but here you can see the AL Gold Gloves. But in the NL, our guy Spencer Horwitz actually takes home the award at first base. So awesome to see for him. I guess he does have some experience as a second baseman in the past, so maybe that helped propel him to some success there. Reliever in the AL, Andres Munoz. He had a monster season, 43 saves. All of these stats are just outrageously good. No showing for us there, or here rather, in the NL. It's a little surprising to see Randy Rodriguez, I guess, there. It looks like they moved him to closer at some point during the simulation, and he did awesome for them. So props to Randy Rodriguez. The next, I guess, award would be Silver Sluggers here. We'll take a look at the AL. Aranda. I think Tampa Bay's represented pretty well here. Yeah, you got Diaz, Aranda, and Cal Raleigh, who ends up with a 10-WAR, 56-homer season. In the NL, no awards for us, but I'll scroll through so you guys can take a look. James Wood, PCA, do make it. Rookies for the AL, Nick Kurtz sweeps, Simpson, Narvaez, Shane Smith. And then in the NL, we nearly, I shouldn't say nearly because it was a unanimous sweep for Augustine Ramirez, but Braxton Ashcraft does play second with 69 total points. We'll take a look at Ramirez's season, so I'll let you be the judge of, should this be awarded over the pitching season that we had from Ashcraft. I think you could argue either way. But of course, I'm not an unbiased viewer. Cy Young, Garrett Crochet wins it in his first year in Boston over Tarek Skubal and Max Fried and DeGrom. But in the NL, our guy Paul Skeens barely edges out Logan Webb with just a couple more total points and one more first place vote. We knew he had an awesome year, but he led the NL in innings, FIP minus, homer per nine, WAR, and probably a bunch of other categories that I don't have on this stat view. So I think the price just went up for anyone who wants to acquire Paul Skeens. He's gone now back-to-back Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, with back-to-back All-Star appearances. So that's super awesome for us when we do eventually decide to move on from him, because obviously now the price of a contract extension has gone up to even higher levels. But we'll wrap here with MVP. Cal Raleigh does beat out Aaron Judge in the AL. Spencer Torkelson, I just clocked that. That's pretty funny. And then Shohei in the NL beats out, weirdly, Pete Alonso. But we'll look at Shohei here, who, had 46 homers and led almost every slash line. And he also started 18 games as a pitcher. So he's fully back. I mean, these numbers are a little bit, whatever, but coming back from the elbow surgery to make 18 starts in the back half is pretty impressive. So definitely deserving of the MVP. But that covers the awards. There have been a couple updates on the arbitration front. We're sort of at an impasse with Andrew McCutchen. I've decided to look into contract extension talks with him, and frankly, he's being so annoying with it. He's insisting on upwards of a $10 million a year deal with all of these promises in the contract, and we're just looking to bring him back on a 1-year deal, very similar to what he was on previously. So I guess he's lost his loyalty to the Pirates after his strong year. So he's probably going to hit free agency, and our fan interest is going to tank. So that's pretty bad. Obviously, there's a chance that he struggles to get interest from other teams on the open market, and we can bring him back there to try to recoup some of those losses. But I guess it's just kind of a L we have to take for now, because I'm not going to pay him $15 million, and I've already tried to negotiate it down 2 or 3 times. The other thing here, Jack Sawinski, I think we're deciding to just non-tender him, right? He's back-to-back negative WAR season. I've shopped him a little bit. I don't think there's much demand for him, and I also, I fear that if I were to trade him to somebody, they would just then non-tender him, so we would be robbing assets from whoever we choose to send him off to. So we're just not going to renew or offer him arbitration at all, and he's just going to be gone. But we did end up finding a deal for Joey Bart. So when I was looking through the teams that had a catching need, there was one that popped out. Obviously, the fans were not happy to see him go. You can kind of see the team we sent him to. I didn't realize he was popular before sending him, but and also the clubhouse is disappointed to see their captain leave. But we ended up sending him to Boston, who I think needed something a little more stable at the catching position. Obviously, they have Narvaez, who played well for them, but beyond that, they don't really have much. I don't think Connor Wong is really panning out for them in this game. And he, I think Joey Bart being a captain personality in Boston, even if he's on the bench or rotating in every few days, I think it does make sense. And they can keep him for the next 2 seasons if they want. So in exchange, we got pitcher Dalton Rogers, who is a lefty, not the greatest measurables in the world, and he's pushing 25, and he was Rule 5 eligible. But I thought I saw a little bit of potential here. Obviously the control is going to be the make or break attribute for him, but that's why we're keeping him in the bullpen, even though he does have stamina. So we've gone into the strategy, and we're forcing the reliever role for him. But with this movement upside as a lefty, and he's also a 4-pitch mix kind of guy, nothing super above average, but the changeup could be above average to well above average with the 70 grade should that fully develop. And, you like all of this personality stuff here. So we figured, why not, He's going to be on the 40 this year, and we can kind of move him up and down as we see fit. But as a, backup lefty who will hopefully come along a bit in AAA for us and maybe factor into the bullpen later in the year or even next year, I think we did okay here. We are going to since he was previously a starter, right, I don't think we necessarily need 45 stamina in the bullpen. So I've gone into his development, and I'm going to override some of the focus here to really bump down that stamina and bump up the control and movement in hopes that we get some, good dice rolls here with these developments. And then in terms of the stuff, I didn't really want to touch it too much just because I don't want any of these pitches that are on the 50 grade to slip below average. So I couldn't allocate it maybe as much as I would want to the changeup stuff. So we'll kind of just see what ends up happening with Dalton Rogers. I don't think it's too egregious. They're not gonna, even though he is a lefty, which is a little hard to find. I don't think they're gonna be super upset to have let him go for 2 years of Joey Bart. So those are the moves we've made up until this point. I'm going to keep pushing on here to the free agency reveal, and we can check back in once that hits and maybe review the available players together before we end the video. But I'll be right back. All right, so we've officially made it to the start of free agency here, and now that we've non-tendered all of our arbitration contracts, we have quite a bit of money available to us here to play with. Definitely want to allocate a lot of this toward player development and scouting. We haven't really boosted those up yet, but we can definitely sign a couple of guys if we want to. But I sort of I'm thinking about our team needs here. In terms of what positions are we weakest at? Where could we fill the gaps? I look at a couple spots, right? Corner outfield, I think, could be one of them. I think ideally O'Neal Cruz is a right fielder, but if he needs to play in center, that's fine. But if we can find a corner bat to pair with Reynolds, or even slot Reynolds to DH, and then, like I mentioned earlier, play Termar Johnson here in left field. Essentially, we're just looking for one more outfielder, I think. That's major league caliber. The other need, I think, would be shortstop. Peguero had a good season for us, and maybe he comes around on the defense, but we're going to take a look and see what's out there. If there's an easy upgrade, maybe we spend a little bit of money there. And if not, we can at the very least look to bring in sort of backup middle infielder type, because, I don't know that I love Triolo. He's fine, but maybe somebody else to back up Peguero and Gonzalez up the middle would be good. And then, our bullpen was pretty good on the whole last year, but we had a lot of good performances from kind of up-and-coming guys. I think we could look to bring in a real true back-end guy if one's out there. I like Santana. He's got great movement, and he performed well for us. And he's still pretty young. But, I think we can always improve because you never know with relievers. It is so volatile year to year. But let's take a look at the guys that became available in free agency. I did want to go over the international free agents as well, because there are a few anomalies here. Not much in terms of pitching. It's all position player focused. And a lot of these first guys, we don't care about. But this guy in particular, Jose Garcia, has one of the most bizarre builds I've ever seen in this game, where he's pushing 30 contact and 20 avoid strikeout, but he's got 80 power across the board. So he really swings the bat hard. He's just not hitting very often, and he's taking his walks. So this is just a crazy profile, and he's a captain on top of all of that. But we will not be pursuing Jose Garcia because there's no shot this ever plays at any level. We did request a scouting report, so who knows? We'll see. This guy is probably the most interesting, I would say. We only have low scouting accuracy, and who knows if this is exactly who he ends up being. But he does profile as a corner outfielder, so it is one of our needs. you like this personality teaser, that can only be positive. The only disadvantage is he's not going to hit for power. But, with our park factor, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. I think the gap power would play well in our park, and we like the avoid K contact and eye potential with the speed. So at only 27, he could be something interesting. So let me know what you think about this guy at a price tag of, roughly 20 mil. We can also compare him against the outfielders in the, the broader free agency list in a bit. There's also this guy who actually is demanding nothing. And the first thing I noticed is he's a tremendous fielder. We already have average scouting on him, and he's pretty much all speed and defense. He could be like, if Chandler Simpson could play defense, but with less of a bat. So, that's my sort of holdup with this guy. He's about to turn 27, but is he really ever going to hit? A lot of these ratings are in the 40s, so I hesitate to even bring him on to give him regular ABs when we just know that the offense is never going to be there. So how is he going to get on base? So he's more of just a pinch runner, defensive kind of guy. So I'm not blown away, but if you feel differently, definitely let me know. And then the last guy is nothing to speak of, but the actual free agents that hit the market here, this is, somewhat of a list. We'll just go ahead and pop over to the full sortable list and take a look. So if we go to all players here, the top guys on the market, you see a lot of high profile relievers, but the big bat is Kyle Tucker, Pete Alonso, and Alex Bregman also behind him. But Kyle Tucker is the crown jewel, and he's demanding quite the deal. He wants a $400 million contract, which I think he may get in real life. So this isn't totally out of expectation, I guess, with him. But he's not going to be for us. We do have 52 mil available in budget, but then moving forward, if we were to sign a player like this, it's just going to be so detrimental for us down the line. So I don't really think that he's on the table for us, even though outfielder is a need. So I'll just kind of scroll through. Maybe it makes more sense actually if we go batter and pitcher here. I've already kind of scoped out some guys here that are interesting to me. But in terms of just like top available players, this is what we're seeing and working with. There are a couple of good, non-tendered arbitration guys available that I've scoped out lightly. Like we have Eggy Rosario, kind of guys like that. And then the bunch of 45 grades, which we won't get into. But if we sort of sort by like our two, I guess, primary positional needs that we were thinking about, we do have Bo Bichette here, who's asking $17 million. I don't know that I like him that much. I prefer a little bit of a tighter glove, or, at least like 55, 60, but 50 is not a great rating for a shortstop. He's really more of a second baseman. Despite being a fan favorite, I don't think he's for us at $17 million. Willie Castro and Dylan Moore are just kind of utility guys. Neither one of them can really play shortstop. So I don't think there's much here, that's kind of the net of this. Like, Eggy Rosario is maybe a little bit more intriguing than Jared Triolo would be if we wanted to bring him in. I'm not sure what his demands will end up being, but I do like this gap power in our park. And if we're just thinking about him as a backup infielder, I think these ratings are fine. I wouldn't want to start him at shortstop over Peguero due to the lack of defense, but he could maybe substitute as a backup infielder for us. It just depends. I don't know that I love the idea of paying him close to $5 million. But he sort of caught my eye on the first pass through here. We'll look through these 45s. Daryl Hernandez, I sort of used him in my athletics rebuild last year. I'm not going to double back on that. Leo Jimenez, I know, really struggles to defend, so I don't think he's our answer either. There is Oswald Peraza here, which is interesting. He was, I guess, just cut loose from the Yankees after they won the World Series in the simulation this year. But I'm wondering if maybe there's a little defensive upside there. OSA tends to value him a little bit more. He's out of option years, so if we do end up bringing him on, he would likely need to stick at the major. So this may be nothing, but I just thought it was interesting that he was so young and available here. But that's kind of really it. And then we start getting into the 40 potential guys, and maybe there's something there, but I haven't really dug deep with that yet. So the shortstop market overall is pretty light, and if we went to all infielders, it's pretty much the same thing. If we're thinking about guys who can maybe play shortstop, right? I guess I don't think Glaber's playing shortstop, and he's also asking for a good chunk there. There was one guy here that I thought could be interesting, but I'm just going to scroll through, and if anyone is jumping out, definitely let me know. But I think we're going to have to just table the shortstop idea for now. Another Yankee, I guess, Yorvit Vivas here, who is definitely not the defender we want, but maybe he could be. I don't know. We only have average accuracy on him. The thing that I like about him more so than the other guys is that he does have a single option year left, so were we to sign him to a minor league or even just like a major league deal, we would be able to send him down this year and kind of let him get ABs at AAA for the third, I guess, consecutive year of his career, to see if we can really tap into these categories here before deciding what to do with him. So that may be somebody we look to bring on, but the infielder market overall is pretty light. If we go to the outfielders, I had mentioned Suchi Hamasaki. We're going to go with that as a potential option for us. Pushing up to 20 mil. You don't love that he can't play center, and usually you're looking for a little more power out of a corner bat. So he's not perfect by any means, but again, interesting because of the age and the price. I think if I were to look at any of these 50 grade guys, right, a lot of them are pretty old. Jack Sawinski is there too, so we're not going to bring him back. We're committed to not bringing him back. McCutchen, we'll see. He still is. His demands have dropped a little bit here once he's hit the market, so maybe that's a good sign. Kepler, no, I don't love it. I looked at him, but he's never going to make contact, and the 40 BABIP is pretty brutal, even with the good gap power. Same for Gurriel, too. I just don't like this. He's also a negative WAR player. Sure, he's not going to strike out, but if any of these ratings drop to 45, he's just going to hit, flyouts. Every at-bat's going to be a flyout. So if I was looking at, these top guys, I'm sort of talking myself into Cedric Mullins, because hear me out, 70 range at center. He is very popular. He's going to help us help sell tickets. He's not going to strike out a ton, 55 avoid K, even though he's at a 25% strikeout rate here. Really, you would love to see that closer to 20 with his rating maybe. But the good gap power And then the eye and contact are just average, but he's going to grab a few steals. He stole 21 last year. Overall, the average is a little bit lacking, but I'm optimistic that he could perform well for us with this gap power. And obviously we love to have the 70 range in center, and that would allow us to push O'Neill Cruz to right field, and then left field can either be Termarr Johnson or Brian Reynolds, or maybe Brian Reynolds DHs, and then Termarr gets run at left field. But I'm not interested in the type of deal that Cedric the Entertainer is looking for at the current moment. I would consider maybe a 3-year contract with like an option 4th year. I'll try to negotiate that off camera. We're just going to look through all the names in this video, and I'll kind of take in feedback and make decisions from there. But that's sort of what I'm thinking for him. I'm not really interested in any of these other guys, to be honest. There are, Lane Thomas is here. I thought maybe interesting, but he's really just so average across the board, and he's not a great center fielder. So I don't think that's, something we're going to be interested in. Akil Baddoo, no. A lot of these 45 grade guys, too, are just kind of whatever. I don't know that they're anyone, tremendously better than the guys we have sort of already in our system with, Nick York and Matt Gorski, who we brought up at the end of the year, and that we also have Ronnie Simon floating around in our minors. So that's sort of where my head is at with the outfield. Maybe Cedric Mullins makes sense for us, but also this Hamasaki guy could be interesting. But again, I just don't love the defense and the lack of power, so I may be souring a little bit on him, but let me know if you feel differently. In terms of pitching, we're not in the market for a starter, I would say, so we're looking for the big bullpen arms, and a lot of these guys just want ridiculous money. I mean, Aroldis Chapman wanting that kind of deal is crazy. Same for Devin Williams. But the first guy just off the rip that caught my eye here is Jason Adam, because he's 55 and he's really cheap. He's only $2.2 million. Granted, he is 34, but we like everything he brings to the table. Even with 45 control, the stuff plays, the movement is there. He's accustomed to pitching leverage. He's never been a full-time closer, and I don't think that's his expectation either. So it's possible we just slot him into a setup role, and Santana still is the closer. I do like to have a little bit more control out of the closer, but I think he could be a good option for us for higher leverage back of the bullpen. Jose Alvarado is also here. Not really interested in another lefty. Ryan Helsley is here. We could, poach from our division rival. Let's check out his number. I mean, he actually did not have a good season at all last year, so that's a little bit concerning, I guess. I expect he would want bigger money as well with the no-trade clause. So it's not a terribly aggressive contract for him. $10 million for a closer. I think we could make that work, but I'm sort of leaning Adam between the two of them. I'll scroll through some other names here. This is, on the whole, a really strong pitching market. And there are even some guys here who are, highly developmental, but we view as really toolsy. I don't know what to make of this guy with 35 control and a 2-pitch mix, but I'll probably do some shopping around on guys like that on my own, but let's just keep looking at the major league guys here. Had I known there would be so many lefties available, I would maybe have reconsidered signing Caleb Ferguson to the deal we did. because Keegan Aiken is here. He's pretty good. And there are just a bunch of guys here. We'll kind of speed through this, but Pete Fairbanks kind of intrigues me a bit. Again, not really touching any of these starters. I did see Zach Gallen, unfortunately, has a torn rotator cuff, so tough for him. And Zach Eflin as well with big injuries, John Gray. Kittredge, Loizaga. Not like super excited by any of these names here. Luis Medina, torn UCL, no. Edwin Uceda, I feel like should not be here, but again, he is a sidearm pitcher, which makes him more susceptible to left-handed hitters. So even though I think of him as being really awesome in real life, I don't really want to touch him here. And then Luke Weaver is also, I think, intriguing for us. He's only well known, so he's not super popular, but I like all of this. I don't think the home run is a major issue in our park, but I could be wrong with that. I may be willing to risk it, though, depending on how competitive the market gets for Jason Adam or, the other guys. He's slightly younger. I think he's like a year and a half or, maybe close to 2 years younger than Jason Adam. So we could look at Luke Weaver as well. And then there are a bunch of like 45 grade guys here who are still pretty capable that I'll, probably look to shop a little bit in this market. No guarantees that they would be major league contributors, but, a lot of these guys that we can sign to minor league deals, I would look to bring in maybe like Cody Funderburk or something. Guys that still have options left that can fill some sort of role. He could be, he might be a decent option for us to take a look at. But, let me know what you guys would do in my situation. We do have a lot to spend. We could make, I think, one or two decent splashes. But I don't want to go too crazy because I'm still trying to reserve some money to funnel into player development and scouting. But if I had to, give my initial thoughts, I would be looking at Cedric Mullins to give him the keys to center field. Hopefully we can get him on like a 3-year deal, maybe 4, and then some back-end bullpen help. I just don't think the shortstop market is there, so we're going to have to ride with Peguero unless I take another look and find something that I missed. I think we're kind of just stuck with the guys we have. So next episode, we'll start actually making signings. We'll move through the off season. We'll do international free agency and see our development results as well. So a lot of ground to cover, but it should move pretty quickly once we figure out, what we're going to do. And then we can push through spring training, and we may do all of that in the next episode, so it should be an exciting one. But as always, I appreciate your time with this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back soon with the remainder of the off season, so thanks.